All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And we are back with another episode in continuation of Orchestrator Manager. In our series for solution accelerators that we started with early introduction of overall solution accelerator framework, the different accelerator solutions available on the marketplace. Andy covered last time Orchestrator Manager as one of the solution accelerators, which is not only just a solution accelerator, but it's kind of a backbone of implementation for other solution accelerators as well. So continuing from there, we plan to cover a few more use cases that were left out from our previous session. So with that being said, I think let's get started. Hello, Andy. How are you doing?
Good, Pradeep. It's been a while, but we are back at it again. So yeah,
Yeah,
everything good,
absolutely.
man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see some of the things that we are going to discuss today. I think one of the things that really caught my attention is primarily credentials and how you manage credentials, how you extract passwords, and what are the key things to be aware of while interacting with that. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Yep. So just as Pradeep said, this is a follow-up. This is part two of the video series that we started a few weeks ago, and a lot of detail on the Orchestrator Manager, how to get started, was covered there. So I would highly recommend watching that video if this video has to make some sense. What I'm going to do this time is going to go into some of the advanced aspects of Orchestrator Manager and cover some of the demos that are very relevant to something that I had done in the past on the RPA Vanguard channel. And also, like Pradeep said, some of the things that you need to be aware of when working with things like credential assets. Right. So with that, I am going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through the environment, and then let's get started with the demo. So you should see the UiPath assistant, and you can see that the Orchestrator Manager has been already deployed, and this has been deployed to my target orchestrator tenant. Now, there's no really hard and fast rule to which tenant you have to deploy this, but it matters when you are working with credentials, and we'll come to that when we are covering that part of the demo. But the first demo I would like to get started is with something called asset overrides, right? So if you go back to the RPA Vanguard channel and look at this video, I had actually created this video, several months ago. And what this video talks about is how do you override your global assets in your orchestrator based on the named user account that is running the automation. Now, if you're not familiar with this concept, you can watch this video. There's a full use case on how to work with overriding assets, right? But one of the gripes I had at that time while making this video was that when you assign, overridden assets, there's no way to do it at scale. For example, if you have 100 named user accounts, then there's no way to actually assign different values of those assets to those 100 named users, right? But with Orchestrator Manager, you can do that at scale, right? So let me show you, or let me give you a quick view of what those overridden assets are, and then we'll demonstrate how to move those assets from one orchestrator instance to another orchestrator instance. So this, the browser that you're seeing now, the orchestrator instance, this is, I consider this my source or development orchestrator. And if you look at this folder, asset overrides, there's a bunch of assets here. And if you look at the values, it says value per user, right? This is an example of an overridden asset. So if I click on any one of these assets, for example, if I go to part number, and if I click on edit, the first thing you will see about an overridden asset is that its global value slider is set to off. That means this is not a global value asset. That means it does not apply to all the named users or robots that have access to this folder, right? So that means it is an overridden asset. So if you come down here to the bottom of the screen, you will see the feature where you can add assets, different values of the same asset based on which named user is actually executing that automation in this folder, right? So here in this case, if you see, I have actually assigned 2 users different values for the same asset, right? So based on which user is connected and which user account is executing the automation, that specific value of the asset will be assigned at runtime. Basically, the orchestrator is orchestrating the assets, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
how it works, right? So what we're going to do now is, this is staging. This is my staging or test environment or dev environment, whatever you term, whatever terminology that you want to give it. I'm going to take these. I'm going to extract all of these shared assets. So if I go back to my, if I click cancel and go back to the main screen, I'm going to take all of these assets and I'm going to transfer them to another orchestrator instance, which I consider production. Now, when I do that, I'm going to assign them to 2 users on that instance, right? So this is where I'm linking what I did in that video in the past to what you see here. If you look at, if you go back to the edit feature of this orchestrator override, you see that you cannot do this at scale. You cannot actually assign asset values if you have more than like 10 users, right? If you have 100 users, you have to add them one by one, which is extremely painful.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
But with
And
Orchestrator Manager,
especially in production, you may have a lot of users, right? Test and dev
exactly,
environment are still limited.
exactly, right? So if you build a really hardcore user regulated automation, and your assets change with those users, and you have a number of users on a robot farm, then you're going to be like stuck with how are you going to transfer these from dev to production, right? But with Orchestrator Manager, you can do that. So I'm going to exit out and I will start Orchestrator Manager, and I will connect to this instance of the orchestrator tenant, which is my staging, and we will pull all these assets down into the worksheet, right? So with that, I'm going to switch to UiPath Assistant, and I'm going to make sure that I'm connected to the right instance. So I inspect my configuration file. If I go to the end, I'm connected to the source. I'm connected to the right instance. I consider my development instance as source. So I'm okay there. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit run.
Is it already executing?
I thought I hit run button, but let's see. Yeah, it is. I think it's flashing. So yeah, it is running, but yeah, there it is. So
Just completed, seems.
no, I think it is. Yeah, something happened there, but it's supposed to actually show the form, but I think it will. But we can always stop it and run it again.
It's still executing, it says.
Yeah. It must be the resources on the machine. Let me stop it and run it again, because I'm sure I hit the play button.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It should start executing.
Yeah. Maybe it's also because I have a copy of an Excel open. Maybe that's the problem. Let me close it and see if that is the problem. I wanted to save my users, save the viewers some time on when we make the when we transfer the assets, right? So let me now run it again. Okay, it's right. So I think that might have been the issue. I don't know. I'm not sure. I have to look into it.
could be one of the very interesting issues, just like in studio, whether you are doing a simulate click or you are doing a machine click.
Yeah, I
You
mean, you
never
saw
know,
that,
right?
right? I mean, I hit the
Yeah,
play button the first time
exactly,
and
exactly.
okay. So now I'm connected to my support website. And again, like we discussed previously, I'm going to disable the OAuth option, and I'm going to use the credential option, and I'm going to click OK. And there it is. And remember, this time we are working with assets, and the intention is to get the asset. So it's already the entity is selected to asset, and I'm going to hit get because there are others. Please do not confuse this to get credential. We are not working with credential assets. We are working with plain assets. So I'm going to select get, and I'm going to hit execute. It may take some time to run depending on how many assets you have. In this case, we are pulling more than one asset. So the more number of assets you have, it will take some time to pull them and generate that Excel for you. There it is. We have the Excel opening. And you will see all the assets being dumped onto this to this Excel. Yeah. So there is asset overrides. I click OK. Remember, my folder is asset overrides. That's the folder I had prepared for the demo.
Right.
So I click OK. And now it's working in the background. So here you see all my assets listed. And if I move this out of the way for a second, if I minimize this for a second, and if I open this Excel, you will see that the asset is listed more than once. But what is different, as you might have guessed, is the user account to which each of these assets have been repeatedly assigned, right?
Okay.
So you have 2 entries for each asset because I've assigned them for 2 of each. Now, here is the fun part. I have to now transfer this over to the create credentials sheet. And I also have to now assign the users who are on the target instance, right? Which is my production instance. So what I'll do is, to save time for the viewers, I've prepared what I'm going to be doing, and I'll simply copy and paste that in the create credentials worksheet. And then we'll go over what is required for you to watch out for when you actually do the transfer. So I'm going to switch to create credential. Create
Create assets.
create asset. But why do I not see that? Yeah, create.
That
Here
should
it
be
is, create.
just create, yeah.
No, it's already here, Pradeep. That's good for us. We don't have to do anything.
Mhm.
So here it is. What I've done here is, this is a run from the last time, and it's still here. So it's good. It saves us time. The folder on my target is called my business folder, right? And I'm going to be transferring these assets over, but I'm going to suffix -prod to make sure that you're seeing that this is indeed the asset that is being transferred over there. Now, if you look at the scope, remember, you are assigning it to named users. So the scope is user. And then you are going to take the email addresses or the sign-in user IDs of your target usernames, and you're going to assign them accordingly. Now, if you look at the get worksheet, I have 2 users here, support and admin. But if I go to create, you will see that the second user is slightly different, right? So here, the usernames are slightly different. So you know that they exist on your target orchestrator instance. and then you set the type of asset. Obviously, you need this, otherwise it won't know what to do. And then obviously you have to give it a value. Again, when I set a value, I'm going to give it the prod suffix just to prove that these assets are indeed being written over, onto the target instance, right? So before we run this demo, the last thing that you have to consider is, if you have run this before, remember that there will be a result section here that will be populated by the Orchestrator Manager. So that will prevent it from running this again. So if you want to run this again, you hit delete, right? And make sure that you clear out the results section, right? And now that you are ready, we should be good to save this worksheet, right? And we are all set to transfer the asset. But before we close this worksheet, let me go to my target instance and make sure that that's indeed where we are going. And this is the target instance. And here is my business folder. And if you look into the asset section here, you will see that there is no other asset except this credential asset that I have here. So we're going to minimize this. We're going to close this Excel now. I've already saved my changes. I'm going to close this Excel. And then I'm going to stop Orchestrator Manager. The reason is we have to connect to the target tenant, right?
Right.
So I'm going to say stop, and I'm going to say yes. Alternately, you can go to this box and say cancel. It will kill the automation and it will stop the process. So you can do that as well.
So before we move forward, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we saw when we are creating those assets, right?
Yeah.
We provided the usernames to
Right.
which user these assets will get assigned to.
Right.
So before we put those users need to be created already in the orchestrator.
Correct.
Right? They have to
Correct.
be an existing user account.
Correct.
And so that's one thing to be aware of. Just
Yeah.
because it's an orchestrator manager doesn't mean that it's going to create your users by default. You have to
Yeah.
have those users available in your target orchestrator before
Correct.
you can perform this migration.
Correct. And I think maybe we have to poke into the Orchestrator Manager to see whether it can create those users in scale. So you do that first, make sure that the users are available, if that's possible, and then you come back and then start transferring the assets to those users, right? So now I'm going to go back again. The procedure is the same. Go into the settings and then connect to target now. Remember what I had said last time? You're telling the Orchestrator Manager which instance it must operate in, which instance it must connect to, but it will refer to the same Excel that we worked on. So the Excel has a get part and the Excel has a set part, right? And based on what operation you're running, it will refer to the same Excel and perform either the get operation or the set operation, edit or delete operation, right? So all we are going to do now is switch connections, and we are now going to connect to the target orchestrator instance. So I'm going to save my settings and I'm going to hit run.
While this is running, I actually used Orchestrator Manager recently for one of my customers' migration from
nice.
test to production.
Yeah,
and yeah, it was not a huge workload, but still better than creating it manually, right? So
correct, but it's just
really
like a feature that you have that you can do things easily, right? Imagine people managing big farms, right? I mean, it's handy to have that, then do this, right?
Slowly it adds up, yeah.
Yeah. So here is the form again, and you can see that now it's connected to RPA Vanguard, which is the target. And I'm going to again uncheck this and hit OK. And I'm going to wait for the menu to come up. So this time I'm going to set the asset, right? So I'm going to say asset and I'm going to say create. And then I'm going to execute. Remember, you can open the workbook before you run execute, but you can hit execute directly, and the Orchestrator Manager is going to open the Excel, and you're going to see the operation going on, right? So I'm going to hit execute straight away. And here you can see that it has opened up in the create tab. And if I go to the right, this is where it will start writing things out. One of the things that you have to remember about the creating these assets is you have given it, you're given Orchestrator Manager the user IDs, right? The user-friendly user IDs. Internally, the Orchestrator Manager is going to make more API calls because it has to associate those user accounts with their user IDs, the internal user IDs that you do not see here, right? So you will see that it is going to take a bit longer than usual, because it has to first identify a user, query the ID of that user, and then associate that ID of the user with the asset that you want to create, right?
Right, yeah. And we talked about that in our last session also, that you have to match those IDs and make sure that you have those folder
Correct.
IDs and other information
Correct.
appropriately filled up before you run through this.
I think I do noticed it last time when I ran it too. It was much slower than I anticipated. So let's hope that it comes through this time. I hope I have not missed any step. I don't think so, because I have already set what I need to. If it fails, then it must be something that I set here. That's not right, but I don't think that should be the case.
Yeah, let's give it a minute. It will
Yeah.
sort out.
It would be nice to see whether it is doing something in the orchestrator itself, whether some action is materialized. Let me go and see if I can hit refresh. So it's not done anything yet. Let's see. I hope this thing doesn't give up on us. I hope that this orchestrator endpoint is not. I don't think so. Oh. It is running though. Yeah, you can see now it started writing
Now
on the
it's
right side.
creating, yeah.
You can see that it is writing here at the same time it is writing to the output in the assistant as well. And that internal ID is actually the asset ID that you're actually getting back from the internal orchestrator database. And it is, of course, you can see it is much slower than usual because of what I just said a few minutes ago.
Is one of the things I'm surprised it's not complaining about the Excel is open.
No, it has to be. The Excel has to be open. And like I said, you can open the Excel even before you hit the execute button, but it will, but if you don't and hit the execute button, it will open the Excel and start writing to it. So it's an attended automation. So basically it's designed to run that way. So it will open the Excel regardless. And now you can see that it has run this successfully. And on the right in the assistant stream, you can see that it has created those assets, all of them. And now it's come back here. that means this process has concluded, and you are now ready to commit, perform the next operation. But let's go back now to the target. And as you can see, I'm going to move this out of the way again. As you can see, there's nothing here. I'm going to hit refresh. And you see all the assets have been created here. And to prove my point, if I go and click on any one of these and hit edit, three things to mention again. You see that the prod suffix is suffixed here. You can see that suffix here. That means whatever was in the worksheet got transferred here. And the second point is that they got assigned to two users. One of the users is different from my development to production, and you see it got created correctly. And the other thing that I had done was I had doubled the values of all the numbers when I had gone from stage to prod. So you can see everything is doubled. This is 4 in the stage, and this is 8 in stage, but I doubled it. But the important part is, if you have a large farm of users, right, robots running on a named user accounts, you can use this Orchestrator Manager to actually transfer assets, overridden assets from source to target at scale, right? This is one way to do it. So if you want to understand, like I said again, if you want to understand what overriding assets is and how do you use it, please go back to that video that I had mentioned at the beginning of this demo, and please watch it. There's a full use case that shows you how to use it, end to end, right? So that's it for this demo, right? This is before we switch on to the other demo. I just wanted you to know that a lot of this documentation is there with the Orchestrator Manager project. You can go and get into the details to see how all of this works, and you can watch the part 1 video on the details of how we got started and came up to this point in our video series.
Yeah, this is definitely advanced stuff than the previous one. So definitely it will, if someone is starting now, they should first watch the first one. That will really help them speed up their learning process. All right.
So coming up will be the demonstration of working with credential assets and passwords. So you might want to stick around for that one.
Yeah, let's do that.